So really have to be yourself. Make sure that aligns with your values, what you want out of life, and that will be your personal brand. Because remember, your personal brand, of course, it can change throughout different stages of your life. But if it's not who you are, and if you cannot put it as part of your lifestyle, you'll feel like it's a very, very big, or like you're faking life and you're putting a lot of effort being someone that you're not.
This is Andrian.
And this is Ray. Welcome to the Talk Live podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we'll invite a new guest and
In every session, we'll dig into their life, relationships, and perspectives.
one question at a time.
Let's talk live!
Yay. Welcome to the Talk Loud podcast, this is Andrian.
This is Ray.
So this time, we're going to follow up with our previous episode is personal branding. And this time, we're going to talk about how to build like a strong personal brand. We had a short, brief discussion saying that, okay, what is building a personal brand? And there's a huge difference, right, Ray? Like between like how you build like a personal brand and what is your personal brand.
Yeah, so I think thanks very much for tuning in and spending your weekend with us or your weekday or commuting to work. Yeah, but if you haven't listened to episode 1 or part 1 of this personal brand series, I suggest you pause and like listen to that so that you have a better context of where Andrian and myself, our perspective are coming from. So touching on to like what Andrian have just said, right? Yeah, there is a big difference on how you define your personal brand and how you actually grow and amplify it. So just to make it clear to everyone and our guests out there, and not guests, I mean our audience out there, that I think what we're gonna do in the beginning is like share what have helped us define what kind of personal brand we want to be known for. So that's finding the why. Not the what, finding the what. Yeah. But that's going to be a tough process, but we will give some framework that have sort of helped us along the way. But the majority part of the episode, we're going to talk about once you actually identified what you want to be associated for, how you're going to amplify it, how you're going to reach a broader audience, or like how to make it more visible in your work setting, your relationship setting, your personal setting, right?
Yeah. So the first thing I think we need to talk about is how you define yourself, define your personal brand first, because you need that before you can do anything else. So our first on how is to write down your core values. What defines you, how you see yourself, and how you think others see you. Because there could also be a gap. So, and how to bridging the gap, I think, is also an important aspect that you need to closely monitor of sort. So, we're gonna have an example. Is that we have a few example actually. The first one is actually Talk La. When we first we still doing the Talk La podcast, what we think of is we want to be curious, right? We want to have an open mind. We want to listen to other people's experience, and we want to learn from that. We want to hear everyone's story because everyone has a story to tell. That's our theme. That's our mindset. Even though how small it is, they still have a story. Even the guy who's sweeping the street downstairs, they have a story to tell. And we want to hear their perspective and their learning from it. And the second one is basically, we want to stay transparent, right, Ray?
Yep. Yeah, I think oh, I didn't know I was gonna cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, but being like so I think before we're gonna go through Talk Last core values.
Yeah.
So you know what Andrian and I stand for and what we advocate for this. So I think being curious, open-minded is one. Transparency, and how this whole transparency, why it became a core value, because we want to make sure when we get our guests, we'll be very transparent about their story. Their perspective is not fluff. There's no marketing. There's no sugar coating to their whole experience. And we want to make sure our audience get the very real picture and a real perspective. So we want to make sure that we are transparent to both our audience, our guests, and also to Andrian and ourselves as a person, like when we're interviewing to our guests. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to segue a tiny bit is, I had a conversation with Ray. I thought of that we can do less of an interview style. We can like integrate in more of a discussion. So feel free to give us your feedback if that is something that you want, or you don't mind the interviewing setting. But I think we can talk about that in the Instagram.
Yeah, let us know your
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah.
And then the last one is to keep it casual, keep it fun, because we want to have a chit chat, because it's the whole point of this podcast is because we have so much to say, and we want a platform for us to talk about this. And it's something fun, it's something casual, and it's not something that needs to be too structured, but it has to be more structured, because or else it would like flow everywhere. But yeah, it's just something that we can really enjoy on our own as well. So that's basically the Talk Lah podcast's motto, and it also resonates with us because it's also part of our personal branding to influence people, to make people have a positive change, positive mindset, and to encourage people. So that's basically the Talk Lah's point of view. But Ray, because he has his own stuff going on as well. What's Malai Zai Ray? Is it Malai Zai Fitness?
Okay, I wasn't gonna bring that up because I really wanted to focus on how, but since you brought it up, I think for those that don't know or first time listeners out there, I actually run my own fitness Instagram page. It's called Malai Zai _fitness. So do check it out. So I actually sat down, have this whole process, and I think that I'm not gonna expand into the details, but just so everyone knows, like, okay, I did the exercise, and for Malai Zai, my core values for that fitness page is actually number one, to be transparent, so very similar to Talk Lah, but also be down to earth, right? And also last one, fun, because like you can tell, like if you're not having fun doing the things that you are spending time outside of work or outside your own personal time, it's not worth investing more of it. So it has to be fun. So I think you can see correlations between Talk Lah and Malai Zai. But I think like I really want to touch, I think before going to the how to amplify your personal brand, on what's the process that have actually helped us to because thinking about the core values might seem very simple, right? Or to some people that actually have went through and thought about it, it's not that easy, right? So I think there's a few ways that you can go about to really structure and really listen to your inner voice. So what I mean by that, okay, you can, like, for example, like you think about core values. So typically you think about 2 to 3. One is a bit hard because it's very hard to really define yourself to just one value. Unless you really center your whole life to that value, then that could be a main and then secondary. So different people have different, but typically we go by the rule of 3. So it's easier to get some sort of diversity and also some sort of personality from what kind of personal brand that you want to do. So what helps is, for example, you take out a piece of paper and then you really start thinking, okay, what kind of values, and how you think about the values is like you need to think about what kind of things that makes you happy, brings you energy, makes you fulfilled. You list them down all, because when you have a paper, right, it's different from like something digital, or at least that's how I feel. Like when you actually write things down on paper, it's more like it works better with your mind connection with your muscle on your hand, right? So once you actually jot out the different things or events or scenarios that make you, and then you can start thinking, okay, based on these different kinds of events, fulfillment, or like tasks, you can actually group them into different core values. So that's how I will look into it. Easier said than done, but you need to go through multiple iterations to actually come up with values that define yourself, and that can sort of be a initial blueprint for your personal brand.
I think I have just a tiny bit of point to add on. Is I really agree with Ray is to just think, basically, is to rethink and reflect on yourself, on what's you. What do you want to tell people about you? Who are you? Because when someone talks to you, basically they're a 3-second rule, right? If they see you, they have a first impression of you. How you dress, how your hair is done, are you like well groomed? That's the first impression, probably like the first 1 second. And then afterwards, when you say hi, they may have already an impression of you, how you are to them. And I think the 3-second rule is important. But before that, you need to know who you are, what you want to tell people of you. Because there was one conversation I've had with a friend asking, so what are you good at? Look at like that air, like for like a few seconds, they were like,
happens.
I'm good at wake surfing. I'm like, okay, does it define you? Maybe sporty defines that person, but wake surfing doesn't.
Okay, maybe I make it more neutral, right? Because maybe their full-time job is like a very professional setting and stuff, something like that, right? Yeah, because, you know, if they are an full-time athlete and then wake surf define them, then you would have a very different perspective of that person, right? And you'll be like, oh yeah, it's very respectable. You wouldn't really judge too much.
It's not an athlete.
Yeah.
But I don't, because that's not something that I think, but I think, okay, good at could be like wake surfing, but it doesn't help me understand more about the personal brand. But I think that's why I had that point is I think everyone should, even though I don't have a very vivid definition of my own personal brand as well, but I think is to know your personal brand and also find ways to define it and to make it holistic, and whatever you do, it also fits to your personal brand and your core value. So I think
I think just to wrap that part on, right? Because I think like what Andrian pointed out, right, from his scenario, right, he's sharing a real life experience when he's talking to people about what he likes and everything. And he's constantly thinking about, what's his... he won't think like, what's his personal brand? But he's thinking like, is this person someone that he wants to hang out more with? Is it someone that he wants to get to know more? Right? You're constantly evaluating that. And then just by hearing different things, then you kind of like sort of formulate an impression, right? So my point is like, okay, personal branding would definitely help you to actually stand out. If you have a clear personal brand, whether it resonates with someone or not, it doesn't matter. But if you have like a clear personal brand that you stand for, that will help you, attract the right audience. And it's very clear for people to really know who you are and whether they want to know, they want to work with you, they want to, spend more time with you, right?
Yeah. Even though it's a nerdy item, like I'm sort of nerdy that not a lot of people know about, I guess. But I would say that could be my personal brand. But if you're passionate about something enough, it is not nerdy. It is something you're passionate about that you enjoy talking about. That's your personal brand. So I think that's basically the wrap up on our first, is to define your core value. Why we spend like over around 10 minutes to talking about it is because that's probably the most important part. If you have it, then other thing is to, just like Ray said, to amplify it.
But I think before we go, sorry for cutting that, because that's just just to give one more framework, right? Because if what you've just listened and you think like, okay, it doesn't really help you to think about how to get your core values, how to define your personal branding, maybe what you can try, I think we've tried this out with some of our guests, and I think in guest 2, Eugene has brought out this concept of Ikigai or Ikigai, right? For those Western listeners out there. Not to discriminate. I think I'm jumping in my own my own hole. But anyway, you get the point, right? Like, so Ikigai basically is like different questions that will actually trigger that process. So I think, for example, what you're good at, what you like doing, what you enjoy doing. I can't remember all on top of my mind, but do check out Ikigai and go through that exercise. There's like a 10-minute version. Yeah, really do it, and then you would get an idea on what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what makes you enjoy, and what the world needs, right? And then you can see how you want to, contribute to this society, and then in return, you sort of get an understanding of what kind of personal brand that you want to build. All right.
Yeah. So I think that is finally the wrap on core value, but we really agree. We're on the same page. That's why we have this podcast, obviously. So on the second one is now how to amplify it. And we have like a few points. We have like 5 to 6 points on that. So I think the first one is what we've learned is to pick 2 social media as your maximum, because one platform is for high value and one platform is for high engagement. High value is basically for people to basically, if it's Talk Loud Podcast, I think our high value is Spotify. And our engagement is probably Instagram. That's probably the 2 social media platforms that we have the most exposure on. But as Ray have tried out, he's using LinkedIn, and also we are on YouTube, as well as other like Apple Podcasts, those kind of platforms.
So yeah, just to give more context, yeah. So this is this particular tip or particular how, right, is mainly driven for online presence, right? Okay, so personal branding, there's two ways that you can drive it, right? One is the offline and one is online. So what we're sharing is something that is easier to be done for online, right? So for our podcast, yeah, basically we chose two social media platforms, which Andrian just talk about. So I think we'll just wrap this point up because if you don't have like an online business or a business or a certain NGO or initiative, then this part will not be too relevant. But just to conclude that if you do have your personal brand, yeah, it could be a business or something, yeah, you can either drive it online or offline. And if you do it online, really, really be thoughtful on what kind of social platforms. Yeah, you definitely need a website, which is something we're working on. But right now, because we are like it's a passion project and everything, yeah, we're relying on two main platforms. Number one on Spotify, where our listeners really get the value of the podcast directly, and then we engage with our fans on Instagram. And I think now recently trying and exploring on LinkedIn.
I think it's also, if you are just like a person, Instagram is probably where you communicate most to your friends, like your stories or your posts. And I think people are posting less, to be honest, but they're posting more of a story, like their day-to-day lives, because it's like limited. It's only 24 hours. You just want to show what's happening. And I think it also defines who you are, and that's your engagement and your value onto people. Because sometimes you're going on like a vacation or staycation or like a restaurant, you're basically sharing that you have a lifestyle. And second of all, people might ask you if it's good. That's your engagement. So that's basically on a personal level, right?
So I think the next how, or like a tip that would be actually very important, but I think a lot of people tend to overlook, right, is you need to have some very clear branding and also some sort of consistency. Consistency is very important, and I think we can elaborate more on that, right? So what we mean by being clear, right? Like you've done the whole core values exercise, but let's say when someone asks you, or like when you want to portray yourself, right? Can you come up with like not to say so long like elevator pitch, but you need to be very clear, concise on your brand and the purpose of that brand, right? And what we mean by consistency, right? Okay, from a marketing level, could be brand, the logos, the type of guests that you invite, from podcast perspective. But I think it's really, really more important, like how you are consistent with your core values, with your personal brand onto your daily life. If you pick like a personal brand that is something not, you basically don't walk the talk, which is the next point, yeah, then I think it's very hard for people to relate and connect. And you basically lose that credibility that you built, right? Yeah, so that's like a point 3.
Yeah, because you're inconsistent, basically. Because they don't know who you are, because you constantly shifting, right? So they don't really know who you are, and sometimes they cannot relate to you. Maybe they like the original personal brand or the second iteration, but then if you were just jumping here and there, they don't know who you are, basically.
Yeah, completely. And that's why we try like just taking we're using Tokla throughout the whole episode as an example, right? So right now you see Andrian and myself portraying as some sort of for our listeners, you guys would have a perspective or an idea on who we are as a person, right? But when we invite our guests, everything, the way we interact, basically, yeah, that's how we portray ourselves online or on this Tokla podcast. But we want to make sure that it is consistent. So if you do actually know us as personally as friends, you guys will know that, this is Ray and Andrian, right? They're not being someone that they are not. And that is very, very important, right? Because we want to make sure like who we portray on one platform. Let's say when they connect with us for another initiative, for another collaboration, it's still the Tokla identity, the Tokla brand.
Yeah. So I think it's also, if you in a personal level, is what we wrote down is the way you present yourself and how you treat your friends off mic for us. And when you just like a normal, you don't have a podcast, it's basically how you talk to your friends. If you are mean, that's your personal brand. Keep being mean. You don't wake up one day and be like, I'm nice. I'm just very
Embrace
nice.
your meanness.
Yeah, embrace your mean. That's if that defines you, because I think if you're mean, which I think I am sometimes, you are mean. You just.
I mean, it's good. People know that you're straightforward.
Yeah.
Like when they deal with you, it's like very straight to the point. You get things done faster.
You don't just go around like beating around the bush, as they say. So, which is the next point?
Yeah. So point number 4, right, is we wrote down like talk the talk and walk the walk. So it relates to point 3, right? But let's give a more clearer example, right? So for example, if you are someone that have a branding that you're very nice, right? You're very nice, and okay. Take something like easier for me to come up. Like for example, if you're a fitness guru, right? You already say like, okay, you're very transparent and everything. You don't take alcohol, this kind of stuff, and then online you provide this kind of image that okay, you do that and everything, but are you really that consistent in your personal life where you really don't take alcohol, you do consistent workouts, or it's just like just good lighting and everything and then you show it? So that's just one example. I think it's clear enough, right? Or you have another example that you want to bring up that
I think a lot of what I would relate to, because we had a PR event at work, and then I was thinking that a lot of key opinion leaders like influencers, KOL, they don't really they look like they have really engaged, they always have a lot of happenings, but what I'm thinking is they're not, they just basically probably sitting on their chairs waiting for a job, and that's basically who they are. But their online presence is very different. It might not be who they are, but is to fit what brands need. So I think sometimes they don't talk the talk or walk the walk, but they just they have to of sorts.
Yeah,
so there's
I guess.
inconsistency.
I think that's sort of like occupational hazard if you're an influencer, and I would really, really want to get an influencer up on the Talk La podcast. So if you have any friends out there that is actually a micro influencer, they don't have to be big. We really want to get their perspective on, how like the upsides, the downsides, how do they deal with all this, right? And how do they do with their personal brand? Yeah, so I think, just leaving it out there for our audience. Yeah. And moving on to the next how is basically, so this one, just to give some expectation, it's more for if you already have an audience or a following. So it's more for online, on social media, podcasting, or YouTube, right? So this point is basically quality over quantity. And what we mean by that is like you don't really need like a lot of following. Of course, it's great to have a large following, but you really need to focus on your audience, on the fans that have been supporting you, because there's a saying, right? Like let's say if 100 people are your loyal fans and everything, and if they buy and purchase your course or whatever content that is meaningful for them, it's able to sustain, and you really just build on those 100 people, and they in return share out to people within their social circles, their communities, and that in return will give you a wider audience. It just grows. So quality over quantity.
And also to focus a bit is like tech is what we've learned is you need to focus on your early adopters. Right? These are our early adopters, and if these bunch are satisfied with their products, then they would share it, they would viral it, and hopefully we are making that. At least if we are not viraling our podcast, hopefully we are viraling the positive mindset.
Yeah, and since you brought up a tech term, inspired me to bring up this term, right? So I think Professor Tat Kun taught us network effect, right? Let's say you're building a platform. So really building on top of your early adopters, and then when they share it to more people, their fans, more of their family, their friends also use it. And it sort of builds this network effect.
It builds a community basically.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can do that. But I think I always want to relate to a more personal level is like, let's say if you have 500 followers and if you post a story, you have 400. So basically your engagement is 80%. But if you have like 10K followers, you only still have 500. Your percentage is around what, 5% engagement. So that is why there's quality over quantity. The amount of followers or amount, and also I don't think followers should define you, because you might feel happier when you're more popular, but as I previously said, it doesn't have to. The small circle that you have can already define you and make you as happy as you have 100,000 followers. Even though 100,000 followers can probably make you earn some money of sort, but that if that's not even your what you want to do, then doesn't matter. So which leads to our next point is to
No, yeah, just wrapping it off, like, no, just one point, right?
Yeah.
Because, you basically start small, identify who you want to target, which actually leads to our next point, yeah? And then traditionally, or like by normal growth and everything, yeah, you guys will grow organically and then really become more and more as you impact more lives, yeah. So how to actually start on to really identify who are those big fans, who are those early adopters, right? And which is what we've wrote as point number 6, really know your target audience. Yeah, and to know your target audience, you need to know your niche. What kind of value you want to provide. Yeah, because without knowing that, you won't know what kind of audience you want to target, right? So for talk lah, right? Since we are both, young adults working with, 4 years of work experience today. And yeah, we really want to reach out to young adults around our age range, +5, +10, -10 kind of range. I think right now, if we're looking at our demographics, it speaks for itself. We're not lying. It's around 72% within age 22 to 28, right? Or 27, that kind of range. So 72% of our demographic, if you're listening and you fall, if you're outside that range, it's great. We're reaching a new audience, yeah. But hopefully we really want to like focus on this demographic range. If we can provide value in terms of perspective from stories from people within our age range, or whether people that are even more successful than us, if we're lucky enough to get them on, we also want to get their perspective so that they can give some foreshadowing on what they've went through and how they can instill some advice, perspective to us. Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's basically the point. I don't want to pile it up.
I just want to add one more because no, it's because because now we're really focused on young adults, right? So leading back to point number 5, quality over quantity, right? Hopefully from our young adults kind of engagements, like they share our stuff, it will lead that ripple effect, that network effect to share to, because another group we will really feel like it would give an even bigger impact is like teenagers, late teens, obviously, when they sort of have some sort of perspective when they're growing up. So when they listen to, people that are already working and everything, it might seem a bit far-fetched, but I think there are some personal stories, some takeaways that they can get from, right? And before they actually go to university, or if they are still in university, then they can really sort of change their life direction, right? If we engage people earlier from giving them more perspective when they're younger, I think it's just a bigger win.
Yeah, it
overall.
benefits them more because they are the one who are still defining themselves, like what we've always spoken about, and they are still the sheeps that they haven't really know where they are.
What sheeps?
Yeah, but in Cantonese it's called 埋頭羔羊.
Oh, okay.
What we can do is to provide more of a perspective, because I was talking to someone and we were talking about their son's academics, and saying that, oh my god, like my son is still realizing where they are and how to improve on their academics. And I think especially boys, if they're listening to this podcast, like when they're teens, they learn more from it because they have, let's just put it like a role model or role map for them to follow that might draw an easier path for them to just understand what is in store for them in life. So I think that's basically for me, and which leads to the next point, because if you can do all of that, I think on all social media presence, to wrap it up, is to be yourself, to let your core value shine, that we have repeatedly said core value is very important, and to know that you are who you are, because you want to be authentic, you want to be genuine, and you don't want to put up like a facade that's not you. Because what we've talked about is to put the inconsistency, talk the talk, walk the walk, is basically to reiterate this point, is to be yourself, don't put on a facade, because it's very easy to spot inconsistency. If you're not that person, if you're not nice, you're not nice. You cannot pretend that you're nice.
Yeah, really, really embracing
Who you
are inside, asking what kind of person you want to, or others to view you as. And yeah, it has to align with, because that's the beauty of this world, right? Or like personalities. Each of us have a different approach on how we think and view things, and each of us have different ways to be fulfilled and how we find happiness, right? So really have to be yourself. Make sure that aligns with your values, what you want out of life, and that will be your personal brand. Because remember, your personal brand, of course, it can change throughout different stages of your life. But if it's not who you are, and if you cannot put it as part of your lifestyle, you'll feel like it's a very, very big, or like you're faking life and you're putting a lot of effort being someone that you're not. And at the end of the day, yeah, it'll just make you very empty. Like whatever that you're doing or you strive to be, it doesn't bring you fulfillment, and you feel like, okay, it'll just mess you up, like yeah, as a person. Yeah, so that's, yeah, to wrap up, the biggest advice I would say, yeah, just really be yourself, find out who you are, do the Ikigai exercises, take some time, pen and paper, think about what you want, think about what different life experiences that made you feel a certain way, and yeah, it should set you a good path, or at least reflect on what kind of personal brand you want to portray yourself.
So what's the conclusion, Ray? You haven't talked about that actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so after saying all that, right, I think the call to action, right, like everybody, like I think there's a lot of different call to actions in the different steps or tips. But one, I think really starting now, there's no right time to start. Some people think, oh, okay, I need to get like to research more about what I like to do. I need to get like a personal brand coach. I need to get a career coach. I need to get, be good at a sport first, then I can define. No, life is too short, right? Right. So actually starting now is like, if you listen to our personal finance, or like, actually, we're not successful yet, to be honest. It's the journey, but starting now, today, like, okay, pause it, like just get out, don't listen to this podcast, get that pen or paper. If you're communicating, yeah, just put your notepad on your phone, yeah. Just write down the different points on who you want to be viewed as a person, what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled. These are tough questions, but yeah, starting now, there's really no harm. And you're only losing if you don't start today. Right? It's just like investing. Like I just wrote down, right? There's never a right time to start. People that say like, oh, we're gonna wait for the dip. The dip comes and you put in money? No, they don't put in money because they never believe in that.
They never know when is the end of the dip. Yeah. So I think it's a good metaphor, and I feel like we're like motivational coach. We just do it. Do you watch that videos? Just do it. Basically, we're that. So I think to finally put in my one point, and we can wrap this all up because it's 30 something minutes, is do what Ray said. Just because you would constantly refine yourself, but you still need to define yourself now. And the earlier you do it, the earlier you realize who you are and live with it. And even if there are some reiteration or some refinement, it's fine. You're still yourself. So that's basically the wrap from my side. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's good, yeah.
All right, then like, subscribe, comment, and share. Right? All right. Thank you very much, and remember to share it because your support is very important. Hopefully we reach like 1.4K listen on our podcast.
Thank you very much for the support on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So building the community one at a time. For us, it's like, okay, we start now so that we can impact more lives down the road. Yeah. So we wish you and everyone, the listeners out there, a very good day, night, evening, wherever you are. A great day at work or week ahead. All right.
All right, see you guys. And probably by the time we're posting this is probably like mid-autumn or something. So happy mid-autumn or pre-mid-autumn. All right,
Or
see
Christmas. All right. See you
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.